7.5 million young people who have come of majority age. They have national identity cards, but the Electoral Commission does not have the resources to be able to register even up to 6 million of them. And in a country in which in the last elections, 14 to 15 million people voted, 7.5 million voters is a large number to disenfranchise. And of course, many of them will be young people and first-time voters. So it is a matter of major concern at the moment that we are able to move forward. We have learned reliably that the donor community, the diplomatic development partners in the country have been instructed not to give funding to the Electoral Commission and also to non-governmental organizations that would want to do voter registration. And why this is so important is obviously if you don't register 7.5 million young people, they have no stake in a liberal democracy. They have no stake in an election system that produces a government, and the potential for them to dismiss the entire model altogether is very high. The second concern is that if you do not invest in voter education, then many of the negative trends that we've been seeing, bribery, extortion, intimidation, and voter suppression, that this is very likely to be a factor in the next elections. And one last thought, I think, which is critical for some of us, is the degree to which digital disinformation will be a weapon in this coming election. And the real concern is that we will not be able to sift through innuendos, gossip, and incitement in order to see issues and candidates potentially who could make a difference in the body politic.
Yes. Now, if you know something, please help us understand why is it that for years and years, the Kenyan politicians, engage in campaigns, right? As you say, after the election, they engage in campaigns. They look forward to the next election. But it doesn't seem like they're interested in making the necessary reforms to the electoral systems, to the electoral body. And then when the elections come, they participate in the election, and then obviously they have issues with the results of that election, or they have issues with the process at that moment. Why not have reforms in the 5 years preceding the elections?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine. Once we passed the 2010 Constitution, we made it very clear that elections should be managed by an independent body. We have a very clear statute within our Constitution, Article 81, that says simply that every vote must be counted, everybody has a right to vote, and that everybody should vote in an environment that is free of intimidation and corruption. But despite that constitutional aspiration, the Electoral Commission has had a history of instability. It has been attacked, and demonstrated against. And in many cases, I think the political class treat the Electoral Commission really as a committee of party agents rather than an independent body whose responsibility is to protect the sanctity of the vote.
Yeah, but then this is what is mind-boggling. All these political leaders are smart people, they're intelligent people. They know that if you don't have an independent, credible electoral body, the elections will never be acceptable. They will never be credible. Why don't either side, whether it's the opposition or those on the government side, seem to have an interest in actually creating the most favorable conditions for holding a credible, acceptable election? Why?
I think partly most politicians see elections as an existential threat to themselves, that they must win at all costs, and that there is no glory in losing an election, and therefore having an independent referee is seen as a vulnerability rather than seen as an asset. And I sometimes, like you, I really get shocked by the level of brazenness in terms of the attempt to essentially push the Electoral Commission far from its independence into the camp of one politician or one political camp or the other. And I think another example of this really is the gerrymandering around campaign financing. We've had several attempts to try and create ceilings for financial campaigns for any of the 6 positions. We've also had attempts to try and ensure that the public have a right to know who is funding these campaigns. Successive attempts to try and build guidelines into this process have been stopped by the National Assembly, and the most recent of that is in the last month or so.